Paul Kohler is current Liberal Democrat member of Parliament for Wimbledon, was assaulted by four men in his own home back in 2014 when they believe, erroneously, that he had a large amount of money hidden. That wouldn't have been a reason to break in, by the way, Paul. I just want to make sure. As I read it sounded like, well, if he had a lot of money, it would have been all right. The attackers were later arrested, charged and in prison. Later, Mr. Kohler received an invitation to meet one of the men while they were in prison as part of what we call Restorative Justice. It's a scheme that allows people to meet the people whose lives they're disrupted. And here's how that encounter went, as told by Mr. Kohler on the Radio 4 programme Life Changing.
He was clearly terrified. He was trembling. He's a young man in his late 20s, early 30s, looking down on the ground, looking to the chaplain for support. It was quite empowering to us, actually, in a way, because what was, until that point, a demon who had tried to destroy our family was now a somewhat pathetic individual walking in, looking distraught and worried. And that, of course, changed the power relationship.
I hadn't heard that. That's not what I expected it to be, which is not wrong. It's great. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll try and talk as little about politics, but I'm that kind of guy. There will be something, because this is too hot a moment to miss, right? Thanks for coming in. Now, in my idea of restorative justice, the person who I want it to impact is the person who committed the crime, in my vain hope that they would understand the impact it had on your life and be less likely to commit said crime again. But you've taken it, in that clip there, somewhere else. Just explain what you meant.
I think that's a really important point. Restorative justice is about making the victim the centre of the criminal justice system. It's about empowering the victim. It's allowing the victim to come to terms with what has happened to them. A byproduct of restorative justice is it often helps the perpetrator. It deals with recidivism. It cuts recidivism. But that very much is a byproduct. Restorative justice is all about giving justice to the victim. And in our criminal justice system, we often ignore the victim. They're often a piece of the evidence, and little more than that.
We often ignore the criminal too.
We do. We demonise the criminal.
It's about punishment and rehabilitation.
Indeed.
Should be.
Absolutely. It should be. It isn't. It should be. You're absolutely right. But restorative justice is about putting the victim at the heart of the criminal justice system, and a byproduct of that is it helps the perpetrator actually understand the impact of what they've done.
Right. So, Paul, look, I've been doing this a long time, but I have a whole new understanding. Grenfell has made me a better interviewer now, because in terms of you talking about restorative justice, I have a better idea of how taking somebody back into something that was incredibly traumatic might impact them. So I'm going to ask your permission, if you are okay for us to go back to the day, to go back to how you felt, what you knew about restorative justice. I just want to make sure that's okay with you.
Of course. Yes.
Okay, so tell me about the day, the night, the event.
It was a balmy evening, August evening in Wimbledon. There was a knock at the door. I was playing cards with my wife. My eldest daughter was at the top of the house. My other three daughters were out in Wimbledon. There was a knock at the door. My wife had just gone upstairs. I went to answer the door, and people bundled in. I thought it was one of my daughters coming in with some of her friends, and they were drunk. I suddenly realised they weren't, of course. They were wearing balaclavas. There were 4 men, and they started beating me immediately, saying, "Where's the money? Where's the money?" And I retreated back down the hall, being beaten, being attacked. I stupidly shouted out to my wife, who was on the first floor, saying, "Call the police." That alerted them to the fact she was upstairs. 2 of them went upstairs, whilst the other 2 carried on beating me. They didn't attack my wife physically, but they threatened her, they hooded her, they made her lie down and threatened her. Thankfully, my daughter at the top of the house, my eldest daughter at the top of the house, her boyfriend stopped her running out and said, "Ring the police, let's hide." And that saved my life, because the police came within 8 minutes.
Well, first of all, there's nothing stupid There's nothing stupid there. Don't do that to yourself. I mean, it's horrible enough, but what you think you're doing in that moment is getting help, alerting your wife to the fact that this thing is happening downstairs. When you look back with the benefit of hindsight, of course, there are all sorts of things you've made her now a target. But you've got to cut yourself some slack. I think I know the answer to this. What impact did that have on you and your family?
It had a different impact on all of us. Physically, I was badly injured. Fractured nose, internal bleeding, fractured eye socket. So I had those physical injuries, which healed over time, and the healing process helped me, actually. It helped me recover, seeing my body recover. My wife was hugely angry that our family home had been trespassed in and had been violated. But my daughter at the top of the house, this was the most interesting thing, she only heard what she thought was her parents being murdered. She'd only came down to see what had happened after the police had arrived. Yet she was hiding in a place of safety, her bedroom. And so that place of safety became a place she associated with this terrible attack on her family.
Oh, my goodness.
And she, soon after the attack, she moved out with her boyfriend. She didn't want to stay there anymore and didn't come back until after the meeting.
I'm just trying to think, and people don't like when people talk like this, I feel like if something happened and a noise happened, I'd say everybody stay there and I'd go and look. I would go and look. How did it make you feel in terms of the safety of your home and those young women who were in your home?
Yeah,
because I asked you how you were, and you went straight to the physical, and I think I'm more interested in the mental, Paul.
Well, as the father, as the paterfamilias, you feel like you're protecting your family.
You should be.
And of course, therefore, there's a certain, I know you picked it up already, there's a certain guilt at times that I let them down. Of course, that's there. But, my wife, my family, my friends, my brother, all rallied round, of course, and helped me through that. And getting through it, the most important thing I did was when I came back from the hospital, I laid down because during the beating I'd been attacked, I'd fallen down, they'd been on top of me, I'd jumped up, and you can imagine at various points in the house I'd fallen down and had them on top of me, and I'd had a memory of looking up and seeing their face leering at me as they beat me, and I had this visceral urge to lie down in each of the places which I remembered so well where I'd been beaten and look up to capture a vista, not of the attacker in my face beating me, but the ceiling. And that, bizarrely, was hugely important in recapturing my space.
That makes sense to me. Where did you get that idea from?
It just came to as I walked into the room, because I can remember the first time I walked into the room, you can remember everything in such detail of where you were at each point.
Yeah, and I'm wondering whether there's a lot of time with that, and it is a misplaced sense of I am the protector, and I mean, me personally, I mean we, you and I, that I would be so worried about my family that I would forget to look after myself. I'm so glad you did that, because it must have been so helpful. How long did you spend in hospital?
It was 5 days. 5 days.
That's got to have been really rubbish.
Yeah, it was, and you can imagine you're behind curtains. Every time the curtain twitches, you think it's the attackers coming in. There's all those things going around in your head. So yes, it was 5 dramatic days.
Did you know about restorative justice before this happened?
No, much to my embarrassment, I was head of the law school at SOAS, and SOAS has quite a reputation in restorative justice.
Yes.
Particularly in the South African context with the Truth and Reconciliation.
Indeed.
I knew nothing of it. It wasn't my area. So I was on the radio talking about the attack, asking why did it happen to me? And the Restorative Justice charity, Why Me, contacted me and said, do you want us to help? And do you want us to perhaps...
Well, how do you know it will help?
Well, they talked me through it. They said, look, we have this process. They talked me through what restorative justice was. And they said it might end up with you meeting one of the attackers. It doesn't always. Of course, it depends whether or not they are suitable. And 3 of them weren't. So they talked me through it and said, look, do you want to do it?
Sorry, I'm going to stop you, Mike, because I know people are tuning in all the time. This is Paul Kohler. He's a Liberal Democrat MP. He was attacked in his home, and we are talking about the penal system, the justice system, because it feels like it's a mess, but we're breaking it down and doing different aspects of it. There's a program coming out where Paul meets one of the people that attacked him. Sorry for interrupting you there. At what point did you think this is... Because I'm guessing you didn't immediately go, yeah, I want to meet him again.
Well, interestingly, I was asking why me, and they said it might be help you explore that question. Why did it happen? So I immediately actually said, yes, I'd like to do it. I talked to my wife and my daughter. My wife was more reticent. My daughter was very keen, and my wife agreed to do it as well. So all three of us went.
Was there power in that?
Sorry?
Was there power in that?
Power in doing it?
In numbers?
Oh, yes, it was definitely. I definitely felt more comfortable with my wife. And
tell me about your other children.
I have 4 daughters. I lived in a house with five women. The 3 of them have moved out now, of course, as they got older.
And you're still in that house.
I'm still there with my wife.
Tell
and
me
one of my
about the daughters that weren't there.
Well, the other three, they were 2 were at university, and one was in sixth form at the time.
Yeah, no, tell me about the impact it had.
The impact on all of them. Well, all of them, it made them worried about the family home. Of course it did. Suddenly...
Did they start worrying about, because you spent all your time, I'm jumping about a bit, but because I think we have to capture points of it. Did they start worrying about you in the way that you had previously been worried about them?
Yes, they're concerned about their father, and it's all over the papers. They see my bloodied face over the papers. They see my bloodied face in real time. They're very concerned. And of course it scared them about the family home.
So you get up the day, you get ready, you prepare, you go. Do you have some sort of seance? Do you talk? Do you hold hands? Do you sing Kumbaya? What do you do before you go?
Long before that, there's counselling where you talk through with a facilitator as to how the meeting might go. You have lots of meetings beforehand to discuss it, as does the perpetrator. And so there's a briefing, there's rules of engagement, there's explanation of how it will happen. It's quite a long process when we're talking about a detailed RJ meeting.
But terrifying.
It was terrifying for all of us. It was terrifying for the 3 of us going in. Plus, he was scared as well.
Well, listen to the way you're cutting him slack now. Talk to me about that, because I am only talking about my wife and my child, right? So 3 of us are going in to meet this toe rag who attacked me. Now you're going. It was terrifying for him. That's interesting.
Well, you could see it. You could see the moment he walked through. We were in the room first of all. We were in the prison in a common area, what was usually a communal area, and it was sectioned off for us that time. We were there first. What kind of security is there? Just describe the thing.
It was a high security prison. It was a high security prison in the midst of Cambridgeshire. We went into that, went through security, we went into this room, and then he came in after we'd settled. And everyone was trembling, actually, 3 of us, and he came in trembling as well.
What did he say?
He was because he was Polish. He didn't have perfect English. He'd started having English lessons. He had a translator there, but in faltering English, I think it started with he sat down, and it was decided that I would speak first, and so I asked him ultimately why he had done it. And then my wife and my daughter each had goes, and he responded.
So you didn't do impact statement type?
No, we'd done that. We had done that. I had done that in court when he'd been sentenced,
right.
Or when the 4 of them had been sentenced, which was, again, a very powerful
Did you
moment.
have it in your head, what I might say? Did you know what you were going to say?
Yes, you talked to the facilitator about that.
Okay.
So yes, it wasn't written down, but you prepared in your head what you were going to say, yes.
That's a big moment in your life, isn't it? We get into the age, all of us now, where this is a moment that I will never forget. And obviously the incident itself must have been traumatic. But this meeting, this restorative moment must have been huge.
Yeah, it was, particularly for my daughter. All the 3 of us went in with different needs. I went in asking why he'd done it. My wife wanted to tell him how angry she was. My daughter, we thought naively, simply wanted to find out whether he was going to change his life. Ultimately, that became the only important question, actually. That was very interesting. So what we thought was a naive, youthful belief in her, in the power of humanity, was the most important question.
Of course it was. And as your party well knows, the world is run by children. You muck about with them, you lose a lot of seats. In terms of, I suppose the ultimate question is, did it help?
It helped. Yes, it helped. I didn't find out my answer. He wouldn't tell me why. If you think about it, it's obvious because it was. I think it was some sort of drug debt where they went to the wrong house. There are many King's Roads in London, so I think it went to the wrong King's Road. So I didn't get an answer to my question. My wife started to tell him how angry she was. He stopped her. He said, "I know how angry you were. I saw your face on the night. I know how angry you were." But then he apologised. And then when he apologised, the rest of the meeting was all about whether he was going to change his life. And therefore my daughter's question was absolutely crucial.
Absolutely more.
That went to the authenticity of his apology.
So I have to ask you questions as though I am a doubter. You understand the way this thing works, right? He's just saying it because he wants a lighter sentence. He's saying it because he knows it will look better.
Well, one, it was after he'd been sentenced. So in this case,
so it made no difference.
It made no difference there. Okay. Secondly, remember, it's about us, the victim, primarily. Even if he's doing it for an ulterior purpose, if it helps us. Right. And the really important point is it demythologized him as an evil victim. He was no longer the figure in my daughter's nightmares. He was now just a somewhat failed individual, and that helped her hugely. She came back into the family home after that. That was really important.
Oh, to you as a dad.
Yeah.
To you as a family.
Yeah.
You were better MP because of it.
I wouldn't be an MP were it not for that. Bizarrely, that moment politicised me. Because that's another story, but
it's part of your story. That's why you're here.
Yeah, well, because my attackers were Polish. This is 2014, before Brexit. It was used in the Brexit campaign. It was used for an anti-immigrant, anti-EU, anti-Polish campaign.
Do you remember the poster?
Yeah, and one of the Leave campaigns used my case in one of their posters.
How did you feel about it?
I felt my narrative had been stolen. I felt, as someone who was very much anti-Brexit, I felt my story was being misused by others to push their agenda. And so that politicised me. I ended up being an MP because of that. So bizarrely, had that not happened, I'd still be an academic.
Right. So the programme or whatever, we heard your interview. I mean, what do you want other people to take from this?
I want the government to put more effort into restorative justice. We've tried to put amendments into.
It's not a vote winner. It's not a vote winner. We're tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. That's a vote winner. Yeah. We've heard it, and we've got more people per capita in jail than anywhere in Europe.
The beauty of this, is it addresses the real problem in the criminal justice system, is it puts the victim at the heart of the criminal justice system, and everyone from the right and the left wants that.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean the crime itself hasn't been committed.
No, but it means that one, the victim finds a way of coping with it, and secondly, has a side effect, it cuts recidivism.
I think this is brilliant, and if you will be part of I call it a campaign, but it isn't a campaign. As somebody who did it before I came in, now they won't let me anywhere near a prison. There's so many things that seem like you teach people how to read, you treat them properly, you rehabilitate them, you give them time off if they have gone on things, as opposed to, if I get 5, I know I'm only going to serve 2.5. Were you in the house yesterday? Not your house. In the big house.
No, I wasn't.
You wasn't. What's happening? How does a party to get a 200 majority? What's happening?
Well, there's a failure of political leadership, an absolute failure of political leadership. And you have 400 Labour MPs who have spent 14 years attacking austerity and saying when they're in power, everything will be okay. They suddenly realised it's a lot tougher being in government.
Is that like you and tuition fees?
Well, tuition fees was clearly an error, but remember we were in a coalition.
Well, I know. But the smaller parties and coalitions always pay attention. How is it that with 4 or 5 seats, that Farage is getting more coverage and reform than the Liberal Democrats who've got 70 odd seats?
He has a populist message which works very well. It's easy to shout simple slogans, and saying something outrageous, as we saw with Trump, gets you airtime. We are offering a cogent approach.
You've got a leader who does, swings on ropes and dances, and he's not short of a gimmick or two, is it?
Oh, and we use those gimmicks, to get important messages over. We use those gimmicks, and then he talks about the importance of social care. The only way we get the publicity is for Ed to do things like that.
Well, Zach is nicking. You're going to be in trouble here. Actually, Zach Plancy is using populism for the Green Party. They're recognised in a way they haven't been recognised before. But it's going to be an interesting moment. What is the one? And I know this is not what you came here for, but we're all right now. We made ourselves vulnerable. We're all right. Last one. Sorry, Paul. Just apologise.
Yeah.
Tiny bit late, but I need to know this. I'm thinking this is, when I remember the 90s and I remember some of the budgets then, this feels like singularly the most important budget of our times. What is it that you're expecting, hoping, dreading? What's your number one? You look at that budget and what Rachel Reeves has to do relative to the civil war that's happening within the Labour Party at the minute. What's your big hope, aspiration or fear?
She's got to do things to grow the economy. The last budget, she actually did things that made the economy get weaker. The increasing NI contributions for employers, that's a job tax. We've got to grow the economy. My fear is she won't do that. And that's the huge thing she has to do. Everything has to be growth orientated, and that means re-engaging with Europe. If we re-engage with Europe, we would grow the economy. You can't tax and tax and tax. You've got to grow the economy.
We'll do this again. I've enjoyed it very much. Hopefully I haven't triggered you at all, and thank you for what you've been through and using that to help other people. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is BBC Radio London.